Want to get some final thoughts from Peter Vincent, because I think Jack brings up some really interesting points. You know, you look at this regionally, and it's very easy for one country to look at another country. They're faltering. There's vacuums that occur. We see this all the time. Syria, a prime example of that. How does this play out regionally, do you think?
Right, and as you know, nature abhors a vacuum, so it'll get filled by someone. There are plenty of individuals in that region that will look to fill it in terms of influence. We shouldn't forget either that there are currently 2.7 million Syrian refugees currently in Turkey. And that has an impact not just for the region, but for greater Europe as well, where we have this mass migration crisis throughout, and some concerns about members of ISIL that may be infiltrating among these irregular migrants. So, you know, this story is only going to get more complicated and frankly more dangerous.
Yeah, and it's been very complicated to begin with. You mentioned the issue of immigrants leaving, the deal that was worked out recently involving Turkey. We've seen it as a jihadi highway. There's so many different elements to Turkey, and this is the latest element, and it's been fascinating to watch. Again, your thoughts in the days ahead. What do you think we see? We see a more emboldened Erdogan, things settle down. We're going to have to wait to see how many casualties we've seen as a result of this, because again, it's very early in the morning there.
Yeah, right. I think you'll see a more emboldened Erdogan. I think you'll see him doubling down or tripling down on some of his more caustic language, on some of his threats regarding not only the PKK and ISIL, but again, members of the elite of the military. I think he will use this as an excuse to just further consolidate power. It's interesting as well that obviously Turkey is an incredibly important part of NATO, but has been making an attempt to get into the European Union, essentially leveraging the refugee crisis to try to get some concessions from the greater European Union, which is, because of Brexit, now down one critical member. I think this actually will deeply harm his sincere desire to become a card-carrying member of the European Union.
And I have to ask one final question, which is the question that was the one that was percolating when Egypt saw so much turmoil. I mean, when you think of Cairo, you think of all these great places to go as a tourist. Turkey is a tourist destination. You know, there are a lot of people trapped there right now who want to get out of that country, and in a hurry. What does this do for their economy when it comes to tourism moving forward, do you think?
It's unfortunate. It is highly dependent on tourism, and it is, as you both know, an incredibly fascinating and
beautiful
rich country.
Place. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. You know, a lot of Western Europeans and Americans, unfortunately, will see this as a danger zone and won't travel. And that's unfortunate for Turkey. It's also unfortunate for those individuals that haven't had the chance to visit one of the great countries and the great regions of the world.
Mike, a couple of things, too, I think, before we leave. What our guest said earlier, that you saw, I would almost say, a state of confusion on Erdogan when he was giving his news conference. He was caught off guard. He was shaken. And being emboldened is one thing, but being shaken to the core is another. And secondly, the fact that one FaceTime phone call, I think, is going to be the signature moment. Yeah. Remember, there were tanks on the streets, and then, boom, people poured out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen.